The richest man in the city just bought an entire building to defend his mother's honor. But what nobody expected was that the woman they humiliated in that luxury lobby was about to become their new landlord's mother, and their mockery would cost them everything they had built. This is the story of Alina Rodriguez, a 67-year-old cleaning lady who dared to sit in the marble lobby of Grandview Towers, the most exclusive residential building in Manhattan. What seemed like a simple act of resting her tired feet after a 12-hour shift would trigger a chain of events that would shake the foundations of New York's real estate elite and expose the rotten core of a system built on prejudice and social discrimination. Alina didn't know that her son, who she hadn't seen in 3 years due to a painful family misunderstanding, had become one of the most successful tech entrepreneurs in the country. She had no idea that while she scrubbed floors to survive, he was closing million-dollar deals and building an empire that would soon give him the power to buy and sell buildings like Grandview Towers as if they were toys. The residents of that building, accustomed to their privilege and blinded by their arrogance, made the mistake of judging this woman by her worn clothes and humble appearance. They laughed, they humiliated, they called security to remove her like she was trash. But what they didn't know was that their cruelty was being recorded, and that recording would reach the hands of someone with the power and motivation to make them pay for every laugh, every insult, every moment of humiliation. If you believe that justice always wins, leave your like now, because what you're about to discover will restore your faith in poetic justice. Comment "Justice served" if you're shocked by this revelation, and subscribe because you need to see how this story of revenge and redemption unfolds. This story will shatter your conception about power, family, and the price of cruelty. Documents obtained exclusively reveal how a mother's tears became the fuel for the most satisfying revenge in New York's real estate history. But to understand how this was possible, I need to tell you from the beginning, because what you'll discover in the next few minutes will change your perspective on respect and dignity forever. Alina Rodriguez arrived in New York 35 years ago with nothing but a suitcase full of dreams and a heart full of hope. She was 28 then, a young immigrant from Guatemala who spoke broken English but possessed an unbreakable work ethic that would become legendary among the families she served. What she couldn't have imagined was that her sacrifice and dedication would inadvertently create the very success that her own son would later use to defend her honor. For 3 decades, Alina cleaned the homes of Manhattan's elite. She scrubbed marble floors in penthouses worth millions, polished crystal chandeliers in dining rooms where single meals cost more than her monthly salary, and organized walk-in closets filled with clothes that could feed a family for years. Every dawn, she left her small apartment in Queens, took 2 subway trains and a bus to reach the Upper East Side, where she became invisible to the people whose lives she helped maintain. Her employers barely acknowledged her existence. To them, she was just another pair of hands, another immigrant grateful for work. They never bothered to learn that she was putting her son through private school, that she studied English at night after her exhausting shifts, or that she dreamed of the day when her boy would have opportunities she never had. They saw her calloused hands, but never the diplomas she was earning through night classes, the business books she read on the subway, or the fierce intelligence hidden behind her humble demeanor. The pain began 3 years ago when her son, Roberto, graduated from MIT with a degree in computer engineering. Success came quickly for him. Too quickly, perhaps. His first startup was acquired for $50 million before his 25th birthday. The money, the recognition, the new social circles, everything changed him. He started feeling ashamed of his mother's job, embarrassed by her accent, frustrated by what he saw as her lack of ambition to better herself. The breaking point came during his engagement party to Victoria, a society woman from old money. When Alina arrived in her best dress, a simple blue outfit she had saved months to buy, Roberto's new fiancé made a cruel comment about the help mixing with the guests. Instead of defending his mother, Roberto chose silence. That night, Alina left the party with her dignity shattered and her heart broken. But Alina's story of discrimination was just beginning, and the cruelest chapter was about to unfold in the marble lobby, where she would dare to rest her tired feet after another endless day of serving those who considered her invisible. Victoria Blackwell Henderson wasn't just Roberto's fiancée. She was the unofficial queen of Grandview Towers, a woman whose family had owned 3 penthouses in the building for over 40 years. At 32, she had never worked a day in her life, but she wielded her inherited wealth like a weapon, using it to maintain a rigid social hierarchy where people like Alina simply didn't belong. Victoria's kingdom was the marble lobby of Grandview Towers, where she held court every afternoon with her circle of equally privileged residents. There was Margaret Steinberg, wife of a hedge fund manager, whose greatest accomplishment was organizing charity galas where she spent more on flowers than most people earned in a year. Then there was Patricia Vanderberg, a real estate heiress, who collected art and husbands with equal enthusiasm. Currently on her 4th marriage to a man 20 years younger, these women had turned cruelty into an art form. They took pleasure in their power to exclude, to humiliate, to remind others of their place in the social order. The building's staff knew to avoid them. The doorman had learned to anticipate their complaints, and even other residents walked carefully around their toxic influence. Victoria's motivation went beyond simple snobbery. She was terrified that Roberto's humble origins would contaminate her carefully curated image. She had spent months trying to convince him to completely cut ties with his mother, suggesting that Alina was an embarrassment to his newfound success. When Roberto resisted, Victoria decided to handle the problem herself. She began orchestrating small humiliations. She would call Elena's cleaning agency to complain about imaginary problems, hoping to get her fired. She spread rumors among her social circle about Roberto's unsuitable background, planting seeds of doubt about his worthiness for their exclusive world. But Alina continued working, continued existing, continued being a reminder of the life Roberto was trying to escape. That's when Victoria conceived her most vicious plan. She discovered that Alina worked late shifts at the Meridian Hotel, just 6 blocks from Grandview Towers. Every night, Alina would walk past their building on her way to the subway. Exhausted after cleaning rooms for 14 hours straight, Victoria decided to use this routine to deliver a lesson in humiliation so devastating that Roberto would finally understand the necessity of completely erasing his past. What Victoria didn't know was that her cruelty would soon backfire in the most spectacular way imaginable, and that the woman she was about to destroy would become the instrument of her own downfall. It was a rainy Thursday evening in October when Victoria's trap was perfectly set. She had been tracking Elena's routine for weeks, noting that the exhausted woman always passed by Grandview Towers around 11:30 p.m. after her hotel shift. That night, Victoria made sure to be in the lobby with her entire crew of socialite vultures. Timing their gathering to coincide with Elena's walk home, Elena's feet were screaming in pain. She had cleaned 47 hotel rooms that day, scrubbed bathroom tiles until her knees bled through her uniform, and lifted heavy vacuum cleaners up and down endless corridors. The rain had soaked through her worn jacket, and her arthritis was flaring up in the October cold. When she saw the warm, inviting lobby of Grandview Towers, she made a decision that would change everything. She stepped inside, just to rest for 5 minutes. The marble bench near the entrance seemed like heaven to her aching body. Elena sat down carefully, trying to make herself as small and invisible as possible. She knew she didn't belong there, but she told herself that 5 minutes wouldn't hurt anyone. She closed her eyes for just a moment, feeling the warmth seep into her frozen bones. "Excuse me, what do you think you're doing?" Victoria's voice cut through the lobby like a blade. Elena opened her eyes to find herself surrounded by 4 impeccably dressed women, their faces twisted with disgust and amusement. "This is a private building for residents only. You can't just walk in here and make yourself comfortable." Elena stood up immediately, apologizing in her accented English. "I'm sorry, I was just resting for a moment. I work nearby, and the rain." But Victoria wasn't interested in explanations. She had an audience, and she intended to put on a show. "Look at her clothes." Margaret laughed, pointing at Elena's wet uniform. "She's dripping all over our marble floor. Do you know how much this lobby costs to renovate?" The women began circling Elena like predators, their laughter echoing off the high ceilings. Patricia pulled out her phone and started recording. "This is priceless. Wait until the residents see this." A cleaning lady thinking she belongs in Grandview Towers. The video captured every moment of Elena's humiliation, her attempts to explain, her quiet dignity in the face of their cruelty, her tears when Victoria called her trash that needs to be taken out. Victoria delivered the final blow. "Security, remove this woman immediately, and make sure she understands that people like her will never be welcome in a place like this." As Elena was escorted out into the rain, Victoria uploaded the video to the building's private social media group with the caption, "When the help forgets their place." What none of them knew was that Roberto's personal assistant, who managed his social media monitoring for business purposes, would flag any content featuring keywords related to his family name, and Elena Rodriguez would trigger an alert that would land this video directly on Roberto's desk within hours. Roberto was in his penthouse office at 2:47 a.m., reviewing acquisition proposals for his latest venture, when the alert notification appeared on his screen. His AI monitoring system had flagged a video containing the name Rodriguez, a precaution he'd set up years ago to track any mention of his family in the media. What he saw in that grainy phone footage would haunt him forever and ignite a fury he didn't know he possessed. There was his mother, soaked and shivering, being humiliated by the very woman he was supposed to marry in 3 months. Elena's quiet dignity in the face of Victoria's cruelty hit him like a physical blow. He watched his mother apologize for simply existing, saw her tears when Victoria called her trash, witnessed her being dragged out into the rain like a criminal. The comments on the video were even worse. Dozens of Grandview residents laughing, sharing cruel jokes, treating his mother's pain like entertainment. Roberto played the video 17 times, each viewing revealing new layers of his fiancé's calculated cruelty. This wasn't spontaneous meanness, this was orchestrated humiliation designed to send him a message. Victoria had recorded and shared his mother's degradation to prove her power, to show him what happened to people who didn't know their place in her world. The breakthrough came when Roberto noticed something in the background of the video that Victoria had missed. Behind the marble pillar, partially hidden in the shadows, stood Marcus Thompson, the night security guard who had worked at Grandview for 12 years. Marcus was the son of Jamaican immigrants, a man who had watched the building's elite treat working people like dirt for over a decade. In the video, Roberto could see Marcus's face, the disgust, the anger, the helplessness of someone who knew that speaking up would cost him his job. Roberto made a decision that would change everything. Instead of confronting Victoria directly, he reached out to Marcus through a mutual contact. When they met the next morning at a diner in Queens, Marcus revealed the truth that would fuel Roberto's revenge. "Sir, this isn't the first time. These women have been tormenting working people in that building for years. They have competitions to see who can humiliate the staff the most. They call it putting people in their place. Your mother. She wasn't their first victim, and she won't be their last unless someone stops them." Marcus had been documenting their cruelty for years, collecting videos, recording conversations, gathering evidence that could expose the systematic abuse happening in Manhattan's most prestigious address. He had been waiting for someone with the power and motivation to use that evidence. That morning, Roberto made 2 phone calls that would seal Grandview Tower's fate, one to his lawyer, and another to his investment banker. Victoria had declared war on his family. Now he would show her what real power looked like. For 3 weeks, Roberto and Marcus orchestrated the most sophisticated intelligence operation Grandview Towers had ever unknowingly hosted. Marcus became Roberto's inside man, his security clearance, an invisible status making him the perfect spy in a building where residents treated staff like furniture, present but unnoticed, essential but ignored. Marcus installed microcameras in his security uniform, devices so small they looked like uniform buttons but captured crystal-clear footage of every interaction. The residents never suspected that their casual cruelty was being documented in high definition. Within days, Roberto's private server was filling with hours of incriminating evidence that would make any prosecutor salivate. The first breakthrough came when Margaret Steinberg berated a young cleaning woman for accidentally brushing against her designer purse. "Don't you dare touch me with those filthy hands," Margaret screamed, forcing the woman to clean the entire lobby floor with a toothbrush while other residents watched and laughed. Marcus captured every moment, including Margaret's phone call to her husband bragging about putting the help in their proper place. Patricia Vanderberg provided even more damaging evidence during her weekly entertainment sessions. She had a twisted game where she would drop expensive jewelry in the lobby, then accuse random staff members of stealing it, watching them panic and beg before revealing the items were hidden in her purse. Marcus recorded her admitting to her friends that she did this to keep them scared and grateful. But Victoria was the crown jewel of cruelty. Roberto watched in horror as Marcus documented her systematic campaign of psychological terrorism against building employees. She had convinced the management company to install performance monitoring systems that were actually designed to humiliate staff. Workers were forced to wear tracking devices, subjected to random integrity tests, and publicly shamed for minor infractions that Victoria invented. The most devastating evidence came from Victoria's own mouth. During a dinner party she hosted in her penthouse, Marcus, working security for the event, recorded her explaining her philosophy to guests. "The problem with this city is that the lower classes have forgotten their place. They think they deserve respect, dignity, rights. My engagement to Roberto is perfect proof that I can elevate someone from nothing but his mother. She's a reminder of what happens when people don't appreciate the opportunities they're given." Roberto discovered that Victoria had been systematically destroying the lives of building employees who reminded her of his background. 3 cleaning women had been fired on false theft charges she fabricated. 2 maintenance workers had been blacklisted from other buildings after she spread malicious rumors. A night janitor had suffered a heart attack after Victoria's sustained harassment campaign, and she had laughed about it at her book club. The evidence vault grew to include financial records, showing that Victoria and her friends had been stealing from the building's employee pension fund, redirecting money meant for workers' retirement into their personal improvement projects. They had been literally stealing from the people they tormented. On November 15th, Roberto received the call that would trigger his final move. Marcus whispered urgently into his phone, "They're planning something big for your mother." Victoria found out where she works now. Tomorrow night, they're going to her hotel with cameras. This isn't going to be just humiliation. They want to destroy her completely. Roberto's war room was a testament to strategic perfection. The entire 42nd floor of his corporate headquarters had been transformed into a command center that would make military generals envious. Wall-mounted screens displayed building schematics, financial records, legal documents, and real-time surveillance feeds. His team of 12 included forensic accountants, corporate lawyers, private investigators, and a crisis management specialist who had toppled corrupt politicians across 3 continents. The plan was elegant in its simplicity and devastating. In its execution, Roberto would purchase Grandview Towers through a shell company, ensuring that Victoria and her circle of cruelty would never see the attack coming until it was too late. His financial advisors confirmed that the building's owners were vulnerable. Recent market pressures had put them in a precarious position, and a cash offer significantly above market value would be impossible to refuse. While Roberto orchestrated the acquisition, Marcus was executing the most dangerous phase of their operation. Victoria's plan to ambush Alina at the Meridian Hotel required precise timing and flawless execution. Marcus had learned that Victoria intended to arrive with a full camera crew. Having convinced her friends that publicly humiliating Roberto's mother would force him to choose between his family and his social standing, Alina, still unaware of the storm gathering around her, continued her routine with heartbreaking consistency. Roberto watched through Marcus's surveillance feeds as his mother arrived at the hotel each morning at 6 a.m., her shoulders bent with exhaustion but her dignity intact. She had no idea that her son was spending 18 hours a day planning the most expensive revenge in New York real estate history. The acquisition moved with corporate precision. Roberto's shell company, Meridian Holdings LLC, submitted a purchase offer of $847 million for Grandview Towers, nearly $200 million above the building's assessed value. The sellers, drowning in debt and facing foreclosure, signed the papers. Within 72 hours, the deal would close in exactly 6 days, giving Roberto ownership of the building mere hours before Victoria's planned assault on Alina. Roberto's legal team prepared a second wave of attacks. They had documented evidence of Victoria's theft from the employee pension fund, her systematic harassment of building staff, and her conspiracy to defame and destroy working people's livelihoods. Criminal charges would be filed simultaneously with the building takeover, ensuring that Victoria's humiliation would be both public and permanent. The night before the confrontation, Roberto made a decision that surprised even his closest advisors. Instead of simply firing Victoria and her circle, he would give them a choice: face public prosecution and criminal charges, or submit to a public apology and restitution program that would force them to experience the same powerlessness they had inflicted on others. Marcus received his final instructions at 11:47 p.m. tomorrow. When they arrive to destroy my mother, they'll discover that they've walked into a trap 3 years in the making. Every cruel word, every moment of humiliation, every instance of their systematic abuse will be paid back with interest. Justice isn't just coming for them, it's already there, waiting. As dawn broke over Manhattan, Roberto positioned himself for the confrontation that would redefine power dynamics in New York's most exclusive building. Victoria had no idea that her victim's son now held the deed to her home and the evidence to destroy her life. The Meridian Hotel's lobby erupted into chaos at exactly 7:43 p.m. when Victoria arrived with her entourage of cruelty, professional cameras, and a social media team ready to broadcast Alina's destruction to thousands of followers. What they found instead was a reception committee that would turn their moment of triumph into their greatest nightmare. Alina was completing her final room on the 14th floor when the commotion began downstairs. She had no idea that her entire life was about to change, that 3 years of pain and separation were about to be healed in the most spectacular way imaginable. The hotel manager, who had been briefed by Roberto's team hours earlier, was already positioning security to contain what was about to unfold. Victoria burst through the hotel's entrance like a conquering army, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor with military precision. "Where is she?" she demanded from the front desk clerk. "I know Alina Rodriguez works here. I want her brought down immediately. We're going to settle this once and for all." Her cameraman was already rolling, capturing what Victoria believed would be the final humiliation of Roberto's embarrassing mother. That's when the elevator doors opened and Roberto stepped out, flanked by Marcus and 3 men in expensive suits, carrying briefcases. Victoria's face went white as she processed what she was seeing. "Roberto, what are you doing here? How did you ... "Hello, Victoria." Roberto's voice was calm, controlled, deadly. "I believe you're looking for my mother. She's upstairs, finishing her work like the dignified woman she's always been. But before you disturb her, I think we need to have a conversation about respect, consequences, and the price of cruelty." The hotel lobby had become an amphitheater. Other guests were filming with their phones. Hotel staff were gathering at safe distances, and Victoria's own camera crew was capturing her complete confusion and growing terror. Roberto's legal team spread out in formation, creating a semicircle that trapped Victoria and her friends in the center of the lobby. "You see, Victoria, while you were busy tormenting my mother and planning this pathetic ambush, I was busy buying things, important things, like the building you call home." Roberto's smile was razor sharp as he pulled out a folder of documents. "Congratulations, you're now my tenant. And as your new landlord, I'm here to discuss some changes to your lease agreement." Victoria's legs gave out. She collapsed into a lobby chair as the magnitude of Roberto's power move hit her. "That's impossible. Grandview Towers isn't for sale. My family has owned those penthouses for—" "Had owned," Roberto corrected. "Past tense. Your family sold their units to pay off gambling debts 6 months ago. You've been renting ever since, which means you serve at the pleasure of your landlord, and your landlord is very displeased with your conduct. Marcus stepped forward with a tablet displaying hours of surveillance footage. Mrs. Henderson, you're also under investigation for theft, harassment, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The evidence we've collected over the past month shows systematic abuse of building employees and embezzlement of their pension funds. The confrontation reached its crescendo when Alina appeared in the lobby. Drawn by the commotion, mother and son locked eyes across the marble floor, 3 years of pain and misunderstanding hanging between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. The courtroom was packed. 3 months later, when Victoria Blackwell Henderson stood before Judge Patricia Williams to receive her sentence, the case had become a media sensation. Manhattan's most expensive revenge dominated headlines for weeks as details of Roberto's elaborate justice operation emerged. What started as a son defending his mother had evolved into a landmark case exposing systematic abuse of working-class immigrants in luxury buildings across the city. Victoria's fall was swift and absolute. The evidence Roberto and Marcus collected led to criminal charges for theft, harassment, conspiracy, and hate crimes. Her 3 co-conspirators faced similar fates. Margaret, Steinberg's husband's hedge fund collapsed when their crimes became public. Patricia Vanderberg was forced to liquidate her art collection to pay restitution, and all 4 women received prison sentences ranging from 18 months to 3 years. But Roberto's revenge went far beyond legal punishment. Victoria's penthouse, which she had used as her throne of cruelty, was converted into affordable housing for immigrant families. The marble lobby where Alina had been humiliated became a community center, offering free English classes and legal aid to building employees. The employee pension fund that Victoria had pillaged was not only restored but doubled through Roberto's personal contribution. Alina's transformation was the most beautiful part of the story. After their tearful reunion in the hotel lobby, mother and son spent weeks rebuilding their relationship. Roberto established the Alina Rodriguez Foundation, a non-profit organization providing education and housing assistance to immigrant families. Alina, despite her son's wealth, chose to continue working, but now as the foundation's director, using her experience and wisdom to help others avoid the struggles she had endured. The building staff who had suffered under Victoria's regime found their lives completely transformed. Marcus was promoted to head of security for Roberto's entire real estate portfolio, with a salary that allowed him to buy his own apartment in Queens. The cleaning women Victoria had terrorized were offered positions in Roberto's companies with full benefits and respect. The maintenance workers she had blacklisted were hired back with apologies and compensation for their lost wages. Most remarkably, Grandview Towers became a model for ethical treatment of working people. Roberto instituted policies requiring residents to treat all building employees with dignity and respect. Any tenant found engaging in discriminatory behavior faced immediate eviction. The building's culture shifted from entitled cruelty to community respect, proving that change was possible when those in power chose justice over privilege. Alina's story spread beyond New York, inspiring legislation protecting domestic workers from harassment and discrimination. Her quiet dignity in the face of cruelty became a symbol of resilience, and her son's response became a blueprint for using privilege to defend the powerless. 6 months after that transformative night in the hotel lobby, Alina Rodriguez stood in the renovated community center that had once been Victoria's throne room, watching immigrant families attend their graduation ceremony from the free English program. Her son Roberto stood beside her, no longer the ashamed young man who had chosen silence over loyalty, but a leader who had learned that true success means lifting others up, not leaving them behind. The walls that once echoed with cruel laughter now resonated with the dreams and aspirations of dozens of families building better lives. Children played in corners where socialites once plotted humiliations. The marble floors that had been forbidden to Alina's feet now welcomed anyone seeking opportunity and hope. Justice hadn't just been served, it had been transformed into lasting change. Victoria's final letter from prison arrived that morning, a handwritten apology acknowledging the pain she had caused and requesting forgiveness. Alina's response was swift and graceful. She would visit Victoria upon her release to offer not just forgiveness, but an opportunity to participate in the foundation's work, understanding that redemption requires action, not just words. This story proves that dignity cannot be stolen, only temporarily hidden. Alina's worth was never determined by the marble floors she was allowed to walk on, or the opinions of people who mistook cruelty for superiority. Her value was inherent, unchangeable, and ultimately recognized by the universe itself through her son's dramatic intervention. The lesson transcends individual revenge. It's about the responsibility that comes with power and privilege. Roberto could have used his wealth for endless luxury, but instead chose to weaponize it for justice. He learned that true strength isn't about rising above your origins, but about using your success to elevate others who face the same struggles you once did. Congratulations for reaching the end of this incredible journey. Only 3% of viewers have the persistence to witness complete stories of transformation and justice. If this story moved you, if Elena's dignity inspired you, if Roberto's choice to defend rather than abandon his family touched your heart, then comment, "Dignity always wins," below to show your support for everyone who has ever been underestimated because of their circumstances. By subscribing to this channel, you're not just joining an audience, you're becoming part of a community that believes in justice, celebrates resilience, and supports stories that prove ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things. When they refuse to surrender their dignity, share this story with someone who needs to remember. Their worth isn't determined by others' opinions. We have hundreds of untold stories of people who transformed humiliation into triumph, who turned their pain into purpose, who proved that justice delayed is not justice denied. Remember this truth: the measure of a society is found in how it treats its most vulnerable members, and the measure of a person is found in how they respond when given the power to either heal or harm.